back, dear listeners, to another powerful episode of Mind Over Masculinity, the podcast where we challenge the unspoken rules around being a man and open up conversations that matter, like, especially the ones that we often keep hidden. And today we are diving into a theme that many men wrestle with in silence, which is overcoming financial loss. Yep. So money is never kind of, I'd say, just about the money. It's all tied to our identity, our pride, our relationships, and sometimes even our sense of self worth as well. And when financial collapse happens, it can feel like the ground beneath us disappears, right? So, this is my guest today knows this journey all too well. So please welcome Roy Coughlan. So welcome to the show, Roy.
Thanks very much, Avik. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. So, dear listeners, before we delve deep into the discussion, I'd quickly love to introduce you with Roy. So, Roy is a seasoned entrepreneur who has founded over 20 companies across 5 countries, co founded ventures like BrandGEM Fitness and VA.World, and built 6 successful podcasts that hit the top charts globally. But his story is not just one of the triumph. I would say it's also one of the resilience. At one point, he went from like owning the multiple properties and a strong financial basis to losing the everything, facing $5 million dollar liability and having to rebuild from the scratch. Yeah. So today we are not just talking about the numbers, but we are talking about the courage, identity, failure, and also starting over. So I'll not take much of your time, dear listeners. And Roy, I'm really honored to have you here with us today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Amazing. So, Roy, like, I mean, if you can take us back to the moment when you realized that your financial world had collapsed. So, what did that feel like for you? I mean, not just as a businessman, but as a human being, as a man.
So I suppose I give a bit of context to what exactly happened. I'm Irish and I moved to Poland 18 years ago. And why I moved is I started dating a Polish girl and I saw opportunity with property. I had no plan of moving there, but I just kind of, there was a lot of people buying properties at that time. That was around 2004. So I set up a company for foreign investors. The relationship ended, and at that stage, I was after buying shares in a commercial property and also uh, a percentage for doing developments. And I was doing very well. I had about 14 people on my books at the time. I was building houses, I was building 30 apartments, as well as doing over 200 renovations and managing 100 to 200 properties at a time.
Yeah.
And when the crash happened, it took a while to come across. It hit Ireland first. And the syndicates that I'd put together, like I was the small boy with some of these. I mean, I'd made my first million. I had 3 properties in Ireland, and how I invested in some of the things I was doing is I released the equity, and that's why people kind of said, "Okay, I'm putting skin in the game," so they were happy to jump on board with me.
Mm.
And some of them were worth 10 million, 20 million, and then they started getting in trouble. And I kind of assumed this was a hiccup in society, and it would kind of correct itself fast. So I started putting my own resources, like 150 grand into the commercial. I started paying for things. And I said, look, I charge you 10% interest. If you can't pay me, I'll increase my share. And they were happy with that. And they got wiped out. And then eventually I started running out of money. And I went to the banks and said, look, can I have interest only on the commercial and the stuff in Ireland? I had 3 rental properties in Ireland. Well, two.
Mm.
I had 3 properties, 2 were rented, and they were on interest only, so they were cash positive. The banks changed that to interest and payments, so they became negative straight away. And basically, as soon as I missed payments in Poland, they just sent in the bailiffs and told people not to pay me, pay them. They didn't pay for water and stuff like that, so the water got cut off, so all the tenants left. So they destroyed a commercial property. And usually with a limited liability company, you go, all right, brush yourself off, lessons learned. That one's gone. Let's start again. But I was the president of a lot of companies, and nobody solicitors or accountants didn't tell me that I was personally liable. So I was personally liable for all the debts, and it was around $5 million. And through that, then there was a lot of court cases, and I saw so much corruption. It was like bailiffs working with valuers, bailiffs bribing people in the room and getting their own cronies to buy properties. And afterwards, then I could see this isn't just in Poland. This is in Ireland, in the UK, and in the States. So I'm assuming internationally that this kind of thing goes on. And like I know it's kind of long-winded answer, but I think to give people context to what happened and where my headspace was, like it was a shock to the system because
Yeah.
I was never one to do bribes or anything because I worked in construction in Ireland, and
Mm.
most industries there's bribery and everything, and it's just not in my DNA. I don't do that kind of thing, and I felt like I'm doing everything right, yet I'm being my account's being emptied. They took my property in Ireland, the three properties in Ireland, but one of them was my personal, with all my personal belongings. They just took everything. And every single thing that they did was illegal, the way they did it. They didn't tell me when it was going to be sold, when it was
Mm.
going to auction, what way it was going to be advertised. They just sold it. And just through that, then I learned about legal and everything. But I suppose getting into the mindset, it was hard because I was kind of newly married, I had a child. It was like, yeah. So I ended up like when the child was one,
Mm.
getting divorced. So that didn't help. I mean, like just wiped out and kind of losing everything from all directions. But on the positive side is now I have a very good relationship with my ex-wife. I've equal custody with my son, so I'm heavily involved with his life. But what really kind of helped me is when you're going through all of this, at one stage, you're getting abused with phone calls, whether it's credit card companies or banks, they're just ringing you up and abusing you. So you're on your knees. So the reason I'm saying this is they still do that. So people are in this kind of boat. What I would say straight away is do not accept phone calls. Tell them I only want letters because they abuse it. And if you ask for the records, they will never show that because if I had like the knowledge that I do now, I would record everything and you would record how abusive they are on the call.
Mm.
Yet it's kind of considered normal or they threaten to put you in publications.
Mm.
And when you've lost everything and you're just struggling to survive, doing that to you isn't really helping you. And there's, I mean, so many people are depressed internationally. It's just going through the roof.
Mm.
So you've got loads of debt collection agencies that are using bully boy tactics. Their information is passed from banks, and they're just
Yeah.
fair tactics. And
Mhm.
the thing is, you have to learn that they have don't have the right to do that. And you kind of how I kind of done it is I kind of said I'm born free. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, we think these people, governments, cities, and stuff like that, think they have control over us.
Mm.
When you realize your freedom and that you stand in it, they no longer have the power over you. And I'm talking about whether it's bailiffs, whether it's judges, police, anyone that is not respectful of you.
Yeah.
And how I kind of went through the journey and helped myself during this kind of turmoil, and I think it would help a lot of people, is one, I came across the 6 phase meditation. And then I kind of created my own version of that. And one of the things is kind of gratefulness because when we're, I suppose, in the hole, there's no point in thinking of lack or, oh, I hope I don't get a bill or I hope they don't take more money because what you start thinking about happens. And you're like, as soon as money comes in, it's like Houdini, it disappears. And so what I would say is be the things you're grateful for, grateful roof over your head, grateful getting it, cuddle from a loved one or a child. And when you start thinking of what you're grateful for, you start attracting it. And the next one, and I think it's probably the most powerful thing that's around, is the act of forgiveness. Because I had so much kind of hatred with even construction companies had done trickery and just seeing the way judges were and different companies. You just have hatred because you're saying, look, if they had paid me or if they hadn't done this, this wouldn't happen. I'd have enough money to pay for things and clear the decks. And I said, I have to forgive him because it's eating you up. And it just obviously smaller ones were easy to do, but
Mm.
there was a few that were very difficult. And I was struggling. I was like every day trying to think, how can I forgive him? And how I did it is I brought him back to the child. I said,
Yeah.
when a child is born, there's pure love, they're innocent, and especially, like, I mean, if you have a baby holding your finger, you see, you just melt when that happens, or the way a child just looks at you. It's a beautiful feeling.
Yeah.
I said they were like that, and external circumstances made them who they were. So whether they had alcoholic parents, abusive parents, or even the parents were working so hard they took the eye off the ball and just left the child gallivant, hang around with the wrong people, and kind of just went down the wrong road and became who they were. But by doing that, I was able to forgive him. And what it did is it freed it from me because it's like the memory of pain poisons us, and
Mm.
it's in our blood. But once we
Yeah.
release it, it's no longer hurting us. So, for example, at times when people are telling a story of loss and stuff like that, they usually break down because they're reliving it. And that doesn't happen to me because I've let it go. And I would encourage everybody, whether it's a relationship, a business deal that you're doing with somebody and it's just went pear shaped, or you're going through some sort of financial loss, start forgiving. And that way, you'll start being your mind to be clear, you can start becoming more creative, and then you can start focusing on, what works. And it was like, I remember one client that I used to be working with, and he said, money solves all problems, so put your attention to making money. Because what we tend to do is, a fire extinguisher, and we're trying to run around the house out in little fires as they're coming at you. And just kind of change your mindset, and that will help you.
Awesome. Awesome. So, I mean, like looking back, was the emotional toll heavier than the financial one?
There was a few things. One,
Okay.
my my father has passed now. He's passed 2 years, but at the time, they used to look after my house in Ireland. They'd cut the hedge in and things like that, just make sure everything was okay.
Okay.
Because I was in Poland, and they went one time, and my mom was telling me all the door was like in locks changed, and they had everything on it, and she said my dad just broke down crying,
Mm.
and that hurt me more than losing the house. It might sound
Mm.
strange, but it was like I didn't like that my father was hurt by what they did to me.
Okay.
And I suppose just seeing how they operate and just r- it's trying to fathom how people can work and know that they're actually harming society. So everything that I try to do is how can I make society better? And I know, like with church, all your shows and everything, like you've got beautiful themes for all the things you're doing. You're helping people.
Mm.
Even this one, it's like, and if everybody was like that, and it's hard to kind of understand why somebody is intentionally doing things, why people are intentionally lying, why people, and you just have to kind of live in your own skin, and you can't change them. I mean, obviously you can spread the message of love and spread what you're doing. And what happens is you tend to get into your circles. Obviously, when people are doing something bad to you, or if it's a business partner and everything, you're cutting the ties. But
Mm.
when you start getting more in tune with yourself, you start attracting the same kind of people. And instead of it being darker, it actually gets lighter. So it might sound strange to think, how could something like this be a blessing? But like, I had plans to build like I built a turkey park. I had plans to build 100 apart. I would have just kept going. And
Yeah.
it was never that I was highly motivated by money, but it was always kind of like, okay, I get a nice car now and I get this kind of house and everything. And it's like, no, it's
Mm.
more living in the moment, being present and appreciating everything. So whatever I'm doing, I'm doing. And also because of I had over 100 court cases, I kind of said, how are they able to do this? And I started learning common law, sovereignty, and I've realized how powerful we are, which most people don't know. And
Yes.
they will control you. They will do what they want. But as soon as I learned these things, I got bailiffs to back off. I got courts that were looking me to come in to back off, and simple things like a mandate. People think, oh, it's mandatory. That's all trickery. And you start learning the power of words and how they do things, and they back off. So I'd encourage everybody to, one, like what I had said earlier, the act of forgiveness. But the next thing that I would say is learn the like your sovereignty. Learn how to be in charge of that and not falling under a system where they're saying act of this, act is acting. All the different things that they do is they're making you think that they have total control over you, and they don't. So for example, um, I'm 53 now, just turning 53. And when you're 50 in Ireland, you're able to get your pension if you want. And so I never put into it, but I had full contribution when I worked in Ireland for two companies for about 12 or 13 years. And I had a bond and I had a pension. So one year I cashed in the bond, the next year the pension. And you're allowed, it's like 25% tax free. But then they tax the rest at 50% on both of the things, the pension and the bond. And through my knowledge and just what I learned, I was writing to them through the revenue government websites, and I got every single penny back. And I don't think one accountant could do that for me. And it's just understanding everything that's done to you and what you have to pay. So it like you don't realize how powerful you are. Like just because people comply with everything, don't be watching others what they're doing. Like I saw something simple recently. They were doing some test in an elevator. People went in and they had three people that were in on the joke, and they all turned a certain way. And the people in there started doing the same. And that's kind of society. Don't be following the herd. Be yourself. Be unique. And just be curious. You don't have to be kind of draining yourself learning all these different things. Do it as a hobby. Like, for example, I mean, in the States, they call it jaywalking. In Poland, they do it as well. And that's fair enough if you're running across a highway and a car has to jam on the brakes. But there's times where it's a small street and there's nothing coming and you have to wait 5 minutes. And then there's police hiding there because they know people will do that and they're giving you a fine. And it's a case of like, ask them who's the injured party. And the first thing they'll do, and this goes to a lot of kind of things, whether it's in the city or whatever, they'll always hand you a piece of paper and they'll say, sign that. And just ask yourself, why is that? Because they're making you complain that you basically say, oh, I'm guilty by signing that piece of paper. And when you realize that, they can't do anything. I'm not saying that you go out and you start, speeding and you start doing things illegally or anything dangerous, but I'm just saying a lot of the times things that are done against us is to empty our pockets, and we're way more powerful than we think.
Yep, that's so lovely. So, I mean, now that you have lived through both the extreme success and extreme loss, um, how do you define the success today? And from your uh, learnings, what one message you would like to give to the men who fear losing it all?
I suppose, well, the lesson of fear of losing it all is
Mm.
don't be thinking of that. Maybe just kind of just just start learning, because even say if you're in a property and they're trying to come in and say foreclose on you and everything, most of the time it depends on the different country, but within Europe you've GDPR. I think you've something similar in the States. And then passing your information is actually illegal. And just learning things like that, GDPR, and you can actually protect yourself. There's some organizations out there that are helping people. Some are doing it for free. There's a few crooks, like in every industry, that are trying to charge people to make them look like they're going to save them. So that's why I would say, even if it's with medical or anything, you learn yourself. Don't just trust the white coat. Start looking yourself and understanding everything, and then just go to different alternatives as well. But it's, if you start thinking of you're going to lose it, then you're kind of attracting it. Try to change your mind to positive. And there's a few, depending on what you're watching and everything, because sometimes people, they're watching horrors, I don't think the brain can decipher what's good. And start watching comedy, start doing things that lift your spirit. When you're with your kids, be with your kids. If you're in work, be in work. Like a lot of times people, what happens is they're in work thinking of their family, they're at home and thinking of their job, so they're never present. And if you're asking for one kind of thing, is whatever you're doing, be there, be totally present. So when you're working, don't have your notifications on your phone and just your head kind of twisting every second you hear it beep. Turn all that stuff off. And when you're doing something, do it. When you're with your children or your wife or your husband or whatever it may be present and do things with them that you're totally present. Because, I mean, I see it all the time. You go to restaurants and you see four people and they're not even talking to each other, their phone is down. And
Mm.
just in Easter this year, the neighbour, because my son wasn't with me, he says, "Hey, you can't be on your own for Easter," and he invited me in. But I thought it was just going to be, they're elderly, they're in their 70s. And I thought it'd be him and his wife and maybe their kids and stuff like that. Maybe six people. But there was over 20, maybe 30 people in there, few kids and big table. Not one person was on their phone for the day. And it was like, wow, this can exist. And everybody was totally present, engaged in the conversation. The children are out playing, not looking glued to their devices. So it's kind of make sure that a device doesn't control you and that you're in control of your life.
Yeah, amazing. So, Roy, thank you so much for sharing not just your wins, but also your wounds as well. So, I would say your story reminds us that masculinity is not just about kind of never failing, but it's all about having the courage to get back up, even when the world is watching. So, for every man who is listening, remember that your worth is not tied to your wealth. Your strength is not measured by your um balance sheet. And your future is not defined by your past losses as well. So it's built by the choices that you make today. And if Roy's journey inspired you, please share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. And as always, keep questioning, keep growing, and keep proving that masculinity is not just about, uh, I mean, is all about more than a money. So it's about the mind over masculinity, right? So, Roy, if someone wants to connect with you, what would be the great medium to connect?
I suppose the best thing where they find most things is roycoughlan.com. That's COUGHLAN.com. If they're looking for virtual assistants, go to VA.World.
Amazing. Amazing. So, dear listeners, what I'll do is I'll put all the links into the show notes for your easy reference. And with this hope, until next time, please, 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 I would say, uh, take care of your mind and the rest will follow for sure. So, thank you so much.